lunch break. We are so glad they tuned in today, aren't we, Scott?
Always a good day
I
when
caught
lunch
you off
breaks
guard.
on.
I
No,
love
you
to
did. I
do
thought
that,
you were going to
David.
stir us in a little bit.
I'm here with my friend and local attorney, Scott Winkler. I'm here with my good friend, David Torres, a local attorney. You have to see these two guys. David's always in the newspaper or on the news, and you're doing
Attorney
a great job.
extraordinaire.
He is.
Oh.
He is. He
Thank
is.
you.
So we're glad you guys tuned in today, and like us, follow us, hit that subscribe button. We're up to 23,000 followers on Facebook, and we're working on our YouTube subscription. So
Absolutely.
want you to guys go on out there. And so, Scott, I'm always excited to be around. David is kind of known in Bakersfield, but he's the founder of law office of David Torres, Bakersfield, California. He's nationally recognized as a leading trial attorney. So are you in that group, David?
With me? I am, but I
David.
really cornered this other large market
Okay.
called Shafter. but let me throw one more fact out there.
Okay.
David was one of my first employers
That's
as an attorney. In
Right.
fact, if I have to be humble here, I didn't pass
Be,
the
Scott.
bar. I didn't pass the bar exam the first time. Had nowhere to go. This young man brought me under his wing, paid me, had me do legal work until actually when I passed the bar, was working for David. And you know what he got me? He went and bought me a couple new suits when I passed and said, if anyone's going to work for me, they better be dressed just as nice as I
Well,
am.
I'm telling you, I've seen David, and he always looks sharp.
He did me up.
But, Scott, I always see you in shorts.
I know. That's why I'm the king of Shafter,
Well,
not a
the-
Bakersfield.
See, the thing is, though, is that when I took Scott to court with me, there would be bums sitting out in front of the courthouse. When one bum gave him $1, I thought, you know what, I better get this guy.
He did. He did. I remember going to Men's Warehouse, but I don't want to take up the intro time.
Oh, I love it. You've been in practice for 30 years. You look too young, David. 30 years.
60 years old, 34 years.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you've got a great reputation. You got notable success advocating on behalf of the accused.
Absolutely.
What brought you into that, David? Just a little thought real quick.
You know, I'm first generation American. My father came up from Mexico, my mom as well. But one of the things that they did was encourage education. Back then, in those days when I was growing up, people actually respected their parents. My father told me I was going to be a lawyer and the governor of California. I didn't want to go that far, but
You've still got time, David.
yeah, so I pretty much realized that at a young age that I had to do well in school, and I had to become an attorney.
Wow. Well, you're a graduate of Fresno State.
Correct.
Yeah, I think our next guest is a graduate just on Saturday of Fresno State. Yeah. So, hey, you attended Gonzaga University.
That's right.
That's right.
He's been a proud man for basketball the last few
Oh,
years.
that's right.
He's throwing that out
You
there.
went to the right school for basketball.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you.
A very good law school as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you were put with the ROTC, earned a minor in military science, obtained your Juris Doctorate from Gonzaga, and you of school in 1986.
Yeah.
And you started practice before the California U.S. District Courts, as well as many other U.S. District Courts throughout the country. And you have an admission to practice before the U.S. Court of Appeals.
And
That's a big deal.
And Supreme Court.
And Supreme Court. Yeah, I was getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And along with that, you have a successful legal practice, but you've also were in the Marine Corps Reserve as a U.S. Army Infantry officer, which I understand there's a promotion coming up.
That's right. Actually, after I was an infantry officer, I was later on appointed to the JAG Corps, which is Judge Advocate General's Corps. And I retired officially from the U.S. Army Reserve in 2013. And I was out for a bit, and I was invited to go back with the California State Guard, which is a part of the California Army National Guard. And I've just been appointed to serve as Chief of Legal Services for the state. And I'm going to be promoted to the rank of full-bird colonel this coming Wednesday.
That is congratulations.
Is retirement even in the works for you, Mr. Torres?
I don't know if he has that in his
I-
vocabulary.
Too
Actually,
big.
I am receiving my retirement benefits from the U.S. Military right now, which is nice.
'Cause, I think there's certain points, because David, you and I can talk because I'm a little older than you, but I think you have to retire at certain times, right, to really get the benefits.
Oh, I already got my benefits.
Well, I'm saying,
done.
I mean,
You're talking about
Yeah.
the progression of
People
life
tell
benefits.
me, people tell me I need to retire at 66, and I go, I don't want to retire. And they go, no, I know, but you need to retire. Just to start the wheels in motion.
You actually have wills, and I mean, your daughter's now with the firm,
Right? Actually, it's Torres Stallings,
right?
the firm, and my daughter is going on nearly 10 years of practice, so she's pretty much taken up a lot of the slack. I'm 60 years old. My plan was to retire when I turned 65, actually from the state court, but continue working in the federal court system.
Now, and talk about the way his father, taught him to give back. Now, is your daughter right now, Lexi, is she the president of the bar or just the immediate past president?
She's the immediate past president of the bar.
So his family, his daughter's a wonderful attorney, very sweet lady, and she's already been the president of the bar at a very young age, right?
Right.
And she's already on the board, if I'm not
High
mistaken.
achievers.
Well, she was a president of the Young Lawyers Section, president of the Women's Lawyers Association, and also she and I are the first father-daughter duel that ever served as a shared serving as a president of the Kern County Bar Association.
You should be a proud papa, right?
Oh, I am.
I love
And that's
that.
not the only one. He's got another. I think one of your daughters is in line to be the big chief of KGT over the next few years.
That's right.
One's
She's-
a corporate lawyer,
Well, one is a
insurance defense.
One is she's like the black sheep because see, she's a lawyer, and I do practice personal injury from time to time, and some of just the worst attorneys that they're lower than Satan. They're called insurance defense lawyers.
Right.
And she happens to be an insurance defense lawyer. I said, you can go work for me, and we work on the side of God and the United States
That's right.
Constitution.
There
We're
you
up
go.
there, we're in that area.
I'm loving that.
And she says, no, I want to be an insurance defense lawyer. So,
Do you think that was like, hey, if Dad's going this way, I'm going to go it this way? And is she the spunky one in the family?
let's put it this
Are they
way.
all-
She knew I was a lifelong Raider fan, so she becomes a Bronco fan.
Oh, my gosh.
She knows I'm a Dodger fan, so she became a Giants fan.
Oh, she just antagonizes.
Of
It
course.
is. That's why Dave and I, listen, we both come from Raider Nation deep. We
Right,
both
right.
bleed Dodger blue.
Exactly.
We had lots to negotiate with when I worked for him. It was a good time.
yeah, I love that,
I know.
Scott.
The only
I know.
thing that we do get along is she's a die-hard Lakers fan, which is good.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
And
You know,
agree.
it's hard. There again, I mean, I'm an Angel fan. Sorry to say that, guys. I think Scott will do it, but it's hard. I'm a national Dodger fan. When we get to the
National League.
National
National
League,
League.
it's hard to be in Bakersfield and not root for them. I grew up in probably the days when there was Bakersfield Dodgers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
did
yeah, I
We
love
got
to be
see-
Dodgers, yeah.
I would, Ron Say, Steve Garvey, they all came through
Yes,
Bakersfield.
Mike
they did.
Piazza.
Yeah,
Yeah,
back
I
in
mean-
the day when Piazza's group ran
Yeah.
through, that was a fun
Yeah,
group.
even
Caros,
Venezuela.
Fernando
Fernando.
pitched once or
Yeah,
twice here.
he did. So
That's
some
awesome.
rehab work. So no, Bakersfield's an amazing city to grow up in, and I love the fact that you chose Bakersfield to stay in.
Yeah.
Was that a hard decision?
No, it was actually a simple decision. I ended up getting an internship here and clerking for an attorney. And later on, once I passed the bar, I decided. Actually, it was Judge Delastrito and another attorney by the name of Vendor Lahiri who convinced me to go into private practice instead of going into the DA's office or the public defender's office. And I'll thank them for that forever.
Absolutely.
Is that a natural course sometimes for attorneys?
Sometimes it is. It depends upon what the attorney want to do. I cannot be a prosecutor. I just have more of a defense in my blood.
Fighter,
so being a
or just that
prosecutor,
scrapper, right?
Prosecutor was never something that I would even have considered back then. And I'm not saying nothing bad about that job because everybody has a job to do. I'm just saying me personally. Just deep within me, I've got to defend the underdog, just like the Raiders.
That's right.
But that's just something
in
that
your
I had
blood.
to do. It is. Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact that your whole family has kind of fallen that direction. I got to be there for Elizabeth's swearing in.
Right.
You were there and it was neat because a friend of mine, Bob Davis, married your sister Sylvia, and Sylvia's a sweetheart, and Bob was one of the original Scott WWF guys before there was WWF.
Wasn't it what was it? Lucha? What was it?
No. So what happened is Vince McMahon's father owned a certain
Yes.
section, but Vince learned it from his father. But Bob wrestled for Vince's father,
Right.
And so he if you look in wrestling history, Bob is the one who started becoming the prolific
Mouth.
Mouth,
Oh, okay.
and he became the manager of the Natural, Bobby O,
Yeah.
and who actually was world champion. And Bob was the one who found Gorilla Monsoon, if you remember
No,
him.
you and I had this talk.
Yeah,
There's
we
a
had the
judge
talk,
on the
right.
bench that's tied. to some. Isn't Lewis family tied to some wrestling families?
Oh, well, he's tied to The Rock.
The Rock. And
Right.
So, and you and I had this conversation once before.
My friend is named Bloody Bob Davis.
Yeah,
that
Bloody
was,
Bob.
That was his wrestling handle. He's got.
It doesn't sound like he's on the winning side very Bloody
well,
Bob.
it's funny. God rest his soul. Rest in peace, Bob. But he had a Sports Illustrated in a case, and it was an article turned to Cassius Clay, back when Cassius Clay, before he was Muhammad Ali. And in it, they asked him, "Where'd you get this mouth on you?" He goes, "I used to watch Bloody Bob Davis on wrestling." So he gave Bob Davis the credit for how he.
Didn't they come with a lot of Mouth of the South after that?
Yeah,
There was the other.
Bob is the one that started it, and then later on, Freddie Blassie started.
Freddie
coming into
Blassie,
it.
that's what I was thinking
and so there was when Bob. Before Bob died, there's a guy named Jay Solomon who's a writer out of New York. So he calls me, and he's saying, and I saw him on Twitter, I'm looking for anybody who's related to Bob Davis. And I happened to come across it. And the reason why is that Bobby Heyman on WWF, I'm still a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
I love Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby Heyman mentions that Bob Davis was the original Mouth.
Yes.
And so he comes out and he's asking, does anybody know where Bob is? So Bob did that interview with Solomon right before he died. It was a really lengthy interview, and they recorded some of it. Awesome interview. I got to get you a copy.
And he is. I'll tell him. I will vouch. He is a big wrestling fan. We used to talk about this.
Well,
years
I think
ago.
that's, but because David was telling me that his kids would have Bob's influence, and they would be piling on David when they were young, right? They were wrestling and they were doing the real drop, but
Yeah. Well, their Uncle Bob, what happened was that he was really good friends with Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage.
Yeah.
and also Roddy.
Rowdy.
Rowdy.
Yeah,
That was one of my
absolutely.
man.
Yeah.
So what happened was that when
Bret
they would
Hart.
come here, Bret Hart.
Yeah.
The Hart
guys,
Brothers.
good
The
story
Hart
about this.
Foundation.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
The Hart Foundation.
So when they would come here, he would give Randy or Hulk a call, and they'd go to Fresno. Our kids would go, and they would get to meet them. But the other, the guy, Cowboy Bob. Oh my God, his
know you're
Borton,
talking.
Bob
Yeah.
Borton.
Oh,
So-
big
I was
Bob
going to say
Orton.
Thornton,
Yeah.
but it was Orton.
No,
So
Orton.
she said, my sister keeps a diary. Remember Bob and the buses?
Oh, yeah.
So Bob takes
Oh,
a
the
bus.
buses.
He took the bus, and she says, I'm looking at my diary, and she's got a picture with this kid. And it's Cowboy Bob Borton with his son, who is now the WWF champion. He was 9 at the time.
Wow.
She was with him.
Who was the other guy that used to work out with you at Gold's?
Adrian
Adonis. I
Had
remember
his own
Adrian.
show.
Keith Frankie.
Can't believe we're talking this much
Yeah,
about wrestling today.
But there again, it just last time I was together, we were all together, Bob and Rowdy and Brett. We were at Adrian's funeral.
Good deal.
Here in
Yeah,
Bakersfield.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody got together, and since then, Rowdy's and Bob's passed on, and Brett's. We're friends on Facebook. But
Well, another, I don't know if you know the story, but Greg Judge Polskamp, his father was, I think, a U.S. Olympic powerlifter.
What did Dr.
So-
Polskamp?
Yeah, Dr. Polskamp,
Yeah.
who was actually from Ohio, where Bob was
Yes.
from.
Yep, Columbus,
And they knew each other from back then, and they were good friends here. And
Very
Bob
cool.
used to powerlift with him.
Bob was a very strong
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Even in his older days, he was always just a strong guy.
And what's cool is even with this much knowledge, think about how much he's given back to the community. The questions we really want to ask this young man. We're going to segue
He's so
here.
connected.
I
yeah,
know he
yeah,
is.
yeah.
He is.
David, you told me a fascinating story about how you brought a program that involved the maybe the non-citizens that were in the military, and when they were honorably discharged, that sometimes they would be promised citizenship, but they wouldn't make it because it took too long.
Well, what happened is that back in 2003, when we invaded Iraq, I was a chief legal assistance officer for a unit down in Los Angeles, and I pretty much carried these guys. I did their wills. I did all of the important legal stuff. And one of the things that I was trying to work on was some of these folks. What I found out, they would be automated logisticians, so they would have to deal with top secret information. But what happened is that a lot of them were sending me emails saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm an automated logistician, but they're taking me out of my job. They're making me peel potatoes, be a cook, be a driver." And the reason was that they were not citizens of the U.S., but they were legal residents. So I brought that up to my commander, who at the time was an attorney for the IRS. She said, "Come up with a solution." So I found out that the Army took 2.5 years to make sure that people were naturalized properly. What I did was I worked with several groups from the IRS, back then the INS, Immigration, and we were able to condense that 2.5 years from 2.5 years to 90 days and sometimes 45 days. So we were having guys over there overseas. We were literally having people get their paperwork together, going to what we call the platform right before they deployed. Right before they got on the airplane, they would raise their hand,
Really?
become U.S. citizens. And our goal was to ensure that every soldier became a citizen before he went off to war. Going back, we ended up winning a national award for that. And all the branches ended up adopting that program. So later on, after I retired from the military, I was asked to return to the California State Guard to help them out. They found out that there were 236 soldiers and airmen who were combat veterans who were not citizens. So they asked me to reactivate the program, which I did, and actually we just won a national award for that.
I love
this
that.
past
But
year.
do they know how many citizens you had actually brought in? And
Well, of the 236 of the recent ones, we're probably almost at 50%.
That's awesome.
But the problem is that when they go off to war, a lot of them end up suffering from PTSD
Sure.
or traumatic
Injuries,
brain
well,
injuries.
right.
They go bad. We
Yeah,
see a lot
absolutely.
of these veterans that have problems. The difference between that soldier, combat veteran, and even Bronze Star recipients who commit a crime, who are naturalized or citizens, versus those who are not. Those who are not end up getting deported. So
Right.
we have
They have
we have
nothing to
Purple
go
Heart
back, no
recipients,
healthcare.
Bronze Stars, Silver
Right.
Star recipients living in Tijuana in huts because they were taken out of the Army because they committed something
that
after
have
they
fought
served.
for our country,
Yes.
right? That have gone over,
Yeah, like risked their lives.
that represented
risked their
the
lives.
United States.
As we have the flag behind you, our show's based on faith, family, and
Yes.
freedom, and we see it in Christ.
Yes.
Where it is, but you can also see it in patriotism to the United States, and
Right.
so. But we all know freedom comes at a price,
Exactly, it does.
and a high price. And I love the fact that you were there for the underdogs, and you received recognition for that because it's noteworthy
Right.
recognition.
Well, I will tell you this. David's also, you brought up Christ. David's also been a let's say a spiritual leader in the community with the legal community. David, I think it was I was working with you. Maybe you started the year before. David started what's in Bakersfield called the Red Mass. And before I mess up everything, give him the brief history, how the Red Mass started, how they came and they prayed for the legislators, right?
Yeah, basically back in the 1500s, all of Europe pretty much was Catholic. This was before the creation of the Protestant church, and so Henry VIII and all that. So what happened is that every October, the courts in Europe actually convened in October, just like ours do now. It's tradition. So right before they convened, the Catholic Church would complete their entire church inside of it with red drapes, and all the vestments that the priests would wear were red. The lawyers and judges and legal officials would wear red robes as well. And the idea was to pray that the Holy Spirit come upon them to ensure that they have wisdom and fairness to judge another individual.
They were essentially anointing the
I
church.
love
with
that.
the and then move forward the way you did.
So then I went to a Catholic law school. Ultimately, I ended up bringing that here about 25 years ago, and it's been going strong. It's been dormant for the last couple of years because of COVID. But this year, what we're thinking about doing is, even though it is a Catholic tradition, a lot of folks, it's non-denominational, but it's in a Catholic church. But what we're thinking about doing this year is perhaps having it at another location where we would have a celebrant, perhaps again Craig Harrison come in, and just everybody come in. Because some
Count
people
me in.
some
Count me
people
in.
may not feel comfortable in a Catholic church, so we're going to have it at a different location. But again, I think it's important where we have community come together in faith
I agree.
to ensure
Right.
that we can look at the judges as defense lawyers. Community can look at them and say, we're relying upon you to do the right thing. And make sure that these folks, everybody gets a fair hand.
Wait, it was, if I'm not mistaken, you had a lot of the legal leaders in Bakersfield at first.
Right.
When I started working with David, he would say, "Hey, go over to Harvey Hall's office." I remember specifically, we would go to the mayor's office, invite him. Harvey came out.
Oh, I know
This
Harvey
thing
would
just
come.
started growing.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
started growing.
every year there would be a bigger crowd going outside the legal community.
Well, I know we'd participate for sure, David.
We brought in firemen, police officers, Kern County city workers, county workers, the
They're
mayors,
all involved.
supervisors. Everybody's involved in it, and
I love that.
it's a beautiful event. My favorite. In fact, what I really love after the ceremony. I mean, we have themes. We've done them for soldiers. We've done them for individuals in our community that have suffered medical ailments, cancer, and have overcome it, and we bring them in to talk about it and to pray for them. And it's a wonderful event. I love it.
I think it's exciting.
Very
It
exciting.
was very cool. And you know what? I think it goes back and helps define who David is. I mean, I was not the first young attorney David brought in. There was a few before me. Since then, there was a whole list of them. And you don't even have to count them. But David, I can't think of any other attorney, especially in the criminal defense field, that gives back to the community as much as you do. You just mentioned before we went on air that he had the retirement party for Judge Delestrito. Events at David's house are fairly common. When did you start getting, can you say right as a young attorney, when did you start getting really involved with the Kern County Bar, and talk about some of the things that you do with the bar that will give right back to the community?
Well, I got pretty much involved. I've always been the type of person to get really involved. I pulled this thing up on Facebook. It was a picture that I saw of myself when I graduated
Yesterday.
in 1983.
I saw that.
Look how young you are.
Good-looking
one
young
of the
man.
And the
things-
hair.
And one of the things I wrote on here, and I said, I talked about how people gave me the gift of education, but I said to all of you graduating this weekend and next, make the most out of your life. It goes by in a twinkle of an eye. Your most important undertaking in life is this: don't just do well, do good. And the mantra of doing good for your fellow woman and man and for your community was imparted to me by one of my former law professors. And that's how I've chosen to live my life, and that's what I've imparted to my children as well. But I told them that take this to heart and you'll do just fine in life. Always look back and extend your hand to those in need. The books you read imparted knowledge, but the net that you cast to help those struggling will define your heart.
I love
That
it.
is good.
And I think it's so important always to give back to the community, and that's why I've always felt. I mean, I've sat on the State Bar Board of Trustees, and I've done whatever I could with them. I'm currently on the Committee of Bar Examiners, and I remain fairly active in the community in a lot of other efforts to try to help people. Oh, we started the COVID-19 task force.
Yeah.
I told you about
Yes.
that before.
Yes, I remember that well.
And so, everything that we're designed to do is to help humanity in any way we can.
And what I can say is that's something that I think you've probably had from being in school, being in law school, being in the military, because I think your faith has kind of kept spurring you on too. Not only your dad, but also, like you said, your fairness in the process, in the system, in the organization.
Well, it's like I was talking to some folks today. They couldn't understand. They understand that their son is being prosecuted, but I had to explain to them that I happen to be the type of person who believes that man is redeemable. I don't look at it. Sometimes you get a prosecutor who's going to look at it from a position of he's the bad guy, we're the good guys. You know what? I think that there's ways that we can all work together to understand that there's rehabilitation because there's good in people.
Yeah. Did your faith kind of put that into you?
Well, you know what? My faith is everything. I don't put my faith out there. I mean,
I know you don't.
you're not gonna see me like that.
I know you're not.
Internally, I'm that type of person that I know that I have a purpose here on this.
Well,
earth.
David, I think your actions though, don't sell yourself short. David is one of the
I
most.
see him all over.
He not only is he involved, and one of the
giving.
questions I was going to ask, you're a big, real fast. When I was down on my luck and needed a job, and I had left my banking, that's how I met David. I was his banker for a while. When I left that industry, had some bad news on the bar exam and needed a job, I didn't just go to work for David and he took care of me. He paid for my lunch every day. I hung out at that office, did work, and if I was there at dinner time, I'd get Bill Lee's or we would do whatever.
I love that,
But
too.
he took care of me. And one of the questions I had, David, is you have such this long history in the community of giving back. Could you sit there and identify what the fruits have been to you by giving back so much now that you can sit back, you're 60 years old, and you can look at everything you've done? What are some of the greatest things that have come back to you because of giving?
I look at somebody like Elizabeth, who I gave a
We
chance
worked
to work
together,
with.
actually, at the office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's now a judge. I know that I've given a lot of folks opportunities to be to clerk for me. One of them is now at Harvard. One's at what was it, University of Virginia.
Lots of private attorneys
Lots of
roaming
private
around
attorneys
town.
that worked
Yeah.
for me in the past. I mean, I think it's one of the things I've done, and I think what I've seen that is really that's made me proud is the fact that, say, my daughter, who's my law partner, she is always eager to do something to help people out, and she started programs to help out youth and to get them back on their feet and to use the legal system. It's called Project Street Youth, and basically a lot of these kids that are under the age of 18 need access to lawyers, and she's brought together the young lawyers to help them out. And so I look back at my kids and see what they've done. My other daughter Bianca was recently awarded Young Professional of the Year
Yes,
because
I
she
saw that.
started she helped start the COVID-19 hotline, and her and her small team they yielded over 40,000 calls and helping people.
40,000 calls.
40,000 calls during the COVID period. They did a lot with. They were able to convince psychologists to come in and help people for free with isolation, depression, all of these programs.
What you're involved with the
Yeah.
911, right?
And I think it's important that whatever you've done in terms of giving back to the community, what you do is what you do. But when you see that somebody else is picking up the flag and spearheading an effort, and
That's
that
a
you help them
blessing.
out, that's a blessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's passing the torch, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And I always tell people when you pass the torch, you got to pass it to somebody going the same speed.
Right.
And it's great when it's your kids.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, great job as a parent, great job as that. David, if there's anything that you can leave as our audience, I know you've talked a lot about that, but what would be the one legacy that you would like people to remember David Torres for?
I had a medical issue just last week.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had to go to the hospital, and I ran into a friend of mine on Saturday, and he goes, I'm going to go to your event. I end up running into him at a supermarket, and he says, I just want to tell you, he goes, my wife and I were praying for you, and I want to tell you, he goes, you don't need to do anything else. You've already left a great legacy. He goes, your epitaph is already written. David Torres was just a great guy. It kind of got to me. I thought, wow, I didn't even ask for this, but the fact that I had a situation where it was
Made you think about life.
made me think about my mortality because I thought I was going to be immortal.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, I told you, David, I had my heart issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I suffered what we thought was a minor heart attack, and we're still looking into it. But I was in the hospital for a couple of days. But again, but to have somebody tell me something
Yes.
like that, and this person was sincere, and his voice was cracking, and I just thought to myself, that's pretty nice if this guy who's a sarcastic person to tell me something like that.
Right.
And but I just hope that people can say that I inspired them to do something good. And to always remember, don't just do good. Well, no, don't
do
just,
well.
Don't just do well.
Do
Do
good.
good.
Do good. Well, we had Jeet Singh on our show.
He's one of my best friends.
Yes, and Jeet left us with a kind of a quote that he says, we tell people, we're not God. You need to find faith because faith is a medicine.
Right.
And it was really interesting coming from a cardiologist because he was part of my recovery.
Let's put it this way. He was with me Thursday night, early in the morning, giving me an angiogram.
Well, it is so crazy the number of people that we've had when we had Jeet on and just said, oh my gosh.
The
he
messages
saved
we got on
Yes.
Facebook.
We just
He was
don't-
my doctor.
Yes,
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and I love to hear that because you know what? I think you and I can fellowship now, and I won't look at Scott because sometimes he gives me a yellow card. But when you feel that you're bulletproof and you realize you're not, it does make you think about that, doesn't it?
It does.
And I don't know why, I can't say it, but it just makes you feel that, wow, I may have been younger and thought I was invincible, but I'm not. And it gets you thinking towards mortality. It thinks you maybe what is left for me, and then it's neat because I think David, God's got too much for you to do. You're going to be
He's
around.
got a long list.
You do. You might have to have some tune-ups, but that's what we all face as we get 60 and 64, 62. Yeah. But I love David. I mean, there again, I've known you. I've admired you. I've listened and followed you, and I just think it's kind of a crazy run that you've had. You've influenced your kids. I love that Bob Davis. I love your sister Sylvia, and it's neat that we can talk about this, David.
Well,
so.
I will tell you too. What's interesting is many of the criminal defense attorneys here in the county are all tied to a text thread where if we need help, we need questions asked. David is unequivocally the guy that he's kind of at the top of the list. He comes in. There's lots of young attorneys. I'm kind of in the middle to late age now. And they go and Dave will say, we'll do A, B, and C for this. And this is almost on the daily, if not, right? That people are either asking for advice or looking into, hey, what would you guys, what was the question today? They were looking for an expert, I believe, right?
Yeah.
A psych expert. So every day there's stuff going on there. And David is constantly touching people, whether they're in his office, not in his office. He just has a big hand in the community. It's cool. I build credibility in my job by saying, yeah, I work for Torres.
Yeah, there you would be a letter of recommendation.
Absolutely.
For others. I love that.
Well, before we move on,
I'll
let you
no,
finish up first.
David, I just want to thank you. Shake your
Thank
hand
you.
for all
My
the
pleasure.
great things you've done.
DT.
And we do
Winky.
want to thank some of our producer, Mike Harvey,
Yes.
MLH Productions, for just being able to put the show on. Alex Howell, who's back there, is our director. And then we have Joanna. She's back there videoing some of this. And then we want to thank Tessa and Taylor Touchstone, our creative consultants. And we have one of our sponsors, Lucky's Rescue.
I think what we need to right now, since the screen's locked, is just focus that Lucky's Rescue is one of our sponsors.
Oh, boy.
And that they provided a dog that we may mention twice in the next show over the next couple of weeks.
Well, we've done that before, Scott,
Yes.
but I'm going to take it from here because the dog is River. And
Boom.
she is a sweet 2 to 3-year-old husky who was found as a stray and whose owners never came to claim her. The gorgeous boy has been a blessing in disguise for our feral dog, Kiki, who has yet to open up to any human but turns to a playful puppy when she's with River. Gets along with most dogs and will do great with dogs and similarly energy type person. He is typically talkative husky but is shy when meeting everyone for the first time.
Tom, wait up. Is River food made? Is River
He
food
is
made?
food motivated.
River is food motivated,
Scott
which is
likes that comment.
every dog we do always says, and the dog's food motivated. I'm like,
Aren't
that's
we
like
all?
saying Winky's food motivated.
They said that he hasn't been count tested.
Okay.
Either. So we're going to
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Darren.
Thank you for Meredith and John out at Lucky's Rescue. And we want to thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions, see our Facebook page, our Instagram page, or our YouTube. Have a great day.